voice gets very loud, just let me know. So since we got asked this about 7 times so far, because now that everyone's seen my last name, the Gongolewskis are not just named after me, I didn't choose it. When Brad was a senior, they came up with the name by combining my last name and the other founding lead mentor who rose a gondola in the summer at Gondola, Providence. So we just told them we didn't want to use the school name, so we mistakenly said whatever you come up with.
Yeah, that was a bad mistake on your part.
And we're also both, the original 2 lead mentors are both Greg. So all our robots are now approved by the board of directors. Their code name is like Greg 1, which is actually me. So Greg 3, 4, 5, even our nonprofit is actually the Greg now. So we've given away a little bit too much power to our students in the past.
All right, so let's get started on team structure and sustainability.
So I've been teaching pre-engineering for 25 years. It's 11 years as a 5112 mentor. I'm also a ballet dad of 3 very strong-willed girls. So if you have friends that are parents of strong-willed teenage girls, check in on them. And luckily, they're all great. They're also, 2 of them will be on the team this year, and one of them's an alumni of the team and is in college now. And even my middle child yesterday wanted to look at she's actually our senior president, wanted to look at the presentation. And her first comment was, bruh, no one wants to listen to you and Brad with that many PowerPoint presentations.
And my name is Brad. I was a founding team member back in 2014. I went to the PI and studied mechanical engineering. Since then, I've transitioned into sales, but I still am, I was a mechanical mentor on the team for 10 years, and now just switched to lead mentor 2 on the team. And as you can see, I'm an ultimate frisbee enthusiast.
So we're going to go over what is team structure and why is it creating one important for you. And we're going to really just focus on the team itself. We're not going to go into our nonprofit or how we run our FLL teams and everything. And really, it came out of our first year. Brad and a couple other students bugged me for 2 years to start an FRC team, and they were FTC. And what happened in our first year is they were all, we didn't really have positions or a structure because they all knew what they were doing through FTC. And then I quickly realized when we went to the end of the year that we need to recreate that, and I need to start training people because how many graduated that year?
12 out of 15 or 13 out of 16, something like that.
So we lost pretty much all of our knowledge base, and we're like, all right, I need to come up with a way to start training the next group of kids.
So our structure really functions around 4 key departments. Each one is led by the director of that department. And within that structure, we have lead positions who become specialists in certain areas and become the go-to person. And then the rest of the team, department gets filled out with general members. Typically, younger students who don't know exactly what they're going to do on the team are kind of finding their spot in the department, getting trained up. So now the directors of each department, along with the 2 presidents, the junior and the senior president, comprise our board of directors who make all the major decisions on the team direction.
And if you guys have really important questions on something that's up, don't feel like you have to wait to the end, because I know we've been rushed to kind of get through things. And we're not going to just talk about our structure, we're going to use it to kind of explain how we came up with ours and why we think it's important.
Can I just ask you a question?
Sure.
Can you differentiate between students and adults when you talk about different roles? I see you use students sometimes, but I don't know what the other ones are.
All the roles that we're going to talk about are student roles. We will talk about where the mentors fit in. So this is the student structure for the team. So as an example, the student director is we have a design and technical department. Brad's actually also a lead mentor for design and technical, but there's a student director for design and technical. So pretty much everything we're going to talk to about today is how the students are set up within the structure of the team and why it works to empower them and kind of get them going with things. So the 3 main reasons we have is just for organization, and we're going to talk about each of these points after. We really only have 4 mentors, and we can have typically between 30 to 40 team members. So organization is important. It also trains the next group of kids to come in and take over, so sustainability, and it really empowers them in their role. They don't always need to check in with a mentor. They can kind of run with their own and kind of go through things. So it's even up there, that's just a couple of kids setting up the URI event, or a few kids setting up URI, which they're working on their own, and our co-chairs of our Women in STEM committee. So just that empowerment, they ran that whole event pretty much on their own last year.
So our organization really narrows down to that each person on the team has a set position and a set specialty that they're working on. So that way we know what tasks are assigned with what individual, and there becomes a knowledge expert in that area. And that leads to personal ownership of that item, and that's where we have the students actually train each other. So once we have a lead in place of a certain task, the mentors are able to step away and be more hands-off, and we expect the upperclassmen students to continue training and that knowledge passing along to the younger students.
And then for sustainability, which really helps, and this is what really came out of our first year, there's always someone in place to replace a team member who graduates. So for instance, one of the ones this year was we had our director of design and technical, who was actually a really good designer, started in that role as a sophomore, and he has a replacement that was already trained under him to come in and fill in this year. So that's dependent on the department. And there are some departments that's a struggle with our programming and electrical department. We'll talk about that. That's the toughest one to fill some of the roles with. But that sustainability has really helped. So no matter how you have that set up, having students ready to take another role really helps. And it kind of takes the pressure off the mentors and some of the other students on the team as well.
And I mentioned slightly before on the empowerment section, where students are given the full ownership of a task in an area, and we have training manuals, but it's their job to continuously go through them, and as new strategies come out, whether it's in designing or whether it's someone who's in charge of fastening or machining, they're keeping up to date on what tools we have, whether we've worn down router bits, and always being the person to go to and saying, oh, I need to place that order, and they're going to our forums and they're getting it, so we don't have 3 adults just walking around the room constantly checking up on, oh man, we're short screws, we're short this, we're short that. We always have students leading and taking charge of their area, and that comes with a great sense of pride and accomplishment when things are going smoothly for them, and it also becomes great teaching opportunities about how their decisions and their responsibilities affect the rest of the people around them.
One of the good examples is our brand manager. So if you've seen our team at competition, our human player is also our brand manager. Competition positions kind of differ from the full season positions, and she's kind of worked with Michelle, one of our other lead mentors, to actually rebuild the brand. So we actually have a fully redone brand book, and actually one of her big projects over the summer is our dress code for competitions. Now she's actually been working with Brad on that, and she's really taken ownership. That's a really good example where, she looks at it and she's even said, she goes, I can't believe how much I've accomplished with how we look at competition and just everything down to what logo gets used where and those kind of things. All right, so we'll go into our structure just so you can see how it relates, but does anyone have any questions on any of this so far, or?
How do you decide who's super?
So we're actually gonna.
We'll get to that one in a minute.
But that's a really good question. We'll talk about that kind of how we get to it. So the board of directors is a group that makes all the decisions for the teams unless it's financial or school policy. So for instance, school policy with our school is transportation is a big one. We can't have certain people drive to certain events. Students can't drive another student to events. Some of that's Rhode Island driving rules until you get your license renewed. And typically what it'll be is it's all the directors of the department. So the directors of programming and electrical, design and technical, media and public relations, and then our admin department is a junior and senior president. And as long as it's one lead mentor will sit in on those meetings, so it can be myself, Brad, or Michelle, usually will sit in on those, and we kind of guide them to make decisions for the team. And it can be something as simple as last week at our board of directors meeting, because we do some meetings over the summer. We normally have our first meeting of the year officially for school season on the first day of school. And it's been like that probably for like 8 years. And they asked if they could not do it on the first day of school this year because they said it's really draining and I just want to go home. So they suggested and they voted on it. So we're going to do it we actually at our school, we start Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we come back the following Tuesday after Labor Day. So like, can we do it on Tuesday after Labor Day? But they also added into it that we have to have snacks at that meeting. So that's actually written into the rules for the first meeting now.
So this is just a visual, and typically what we do over the year, as we fill the positions, we actually write in the names, and we store this on our drive, so everyone can always go back and reference. So even if someone is in a department such as media and PR, they can just look and see who the leads are, who the experts might be in another department, should they have a question. We've redacted all the names, so we're going to probably be putting out who we've got in what position.
And we'll show the whole structure all the way down after. This is just the director positions that are just the board of directors. Yes?
The senior president and junior president title must be in those grades or that time?
No, it's actually the junior president is being trained by the senior president. So typically your senior president could be a junior or senior. Our senior president this year is going to be senior president for 2 years because they applied as junior president their sophomore year. And then the junior president, we typically like to have at least 1 year on the team. The only rule we have is that the junior president can't be a senior because then you've lost that sustainability training with that. So we do get a lot of questions on that, but you're the most senior president and then you're the training president is basically what the junior president comes down to.
And that is a automatic flow unless we had an exceptional case where we had to remove someone. So applying for the president position is a 2-year position, typically. We make exceptions here and there for outstanding circumstances, but. So then our lead positions, we've talked a little bit on more before, how they run the trainings, they keep our documentation updated. We run an entire, what we call our green pages, which is a version of written documentation on how to do department-specific tasks and how to execute through everything. So everyone's tasked with that throughout the year. And here's some examples of what those lead positions look like inside of each department.
And it's just, all the gray ones are the lead positions. So lead positions are also typically have a year of experience. There are some that, because we have 5 FLL teams at our middle school, there are some positions that a student can jump right into. So for instance, our social media manager this year was a team captain of one of our FLL teams in 8th grade, so she's ready to transition to that position. Do you guys have any questions on any of that? Yes?
I have a couple of questions. I don't see anything for outreach or awards or anything like that. Is that real being or?
So we run a whole set of committees. So we actually have an outreach committee, and it's impact/award committee, FLL committee. What am I missing?
There's one more, and I don't have it.
I don't know, I feel. So every person on the team sits on committees, and for an example, the senior president is actually the lead of the impact/awards committee, and they know when they apply for that position that they're also going to be presenting for impact. So yeah, that's a whole separate subset, and we're going to share all our documentation too. So we do it every person on the team actually has to sit on a committee and work on a committee.
So the best way to describe this, I would say, is that there's 3 sections of the team. There's regular year-round positions. There's committee positions, which are related to the outreach or awards. And then there's competition positions, which is where you get into your drive team, your scouting team, your presentation team, pit crew, and so forth. So you end up having a cross-pollination where it's not just, I'm just the builder, that's all I do. You end up having to be involved in at least one committee. You have to be in one department, and you have to have, I guess you don't have to have a competition position,
Right.
a formal apply before one, but they'll have some sort of role or responsibility.
You know, you could be scouting a competition, and we even have, the kids came up with years ago, there's even drive team support to make sure our drive team actually drinks after matches and stuff, because that was an issue. So there's actually kids that, and they actually asked this year for fanny packs with water bottle holders and stuff. So our team does a lot of goofy things just to keep things involved too. Yes?
Do students in the administrative department, do they ever participate as members of any of the other departments? Like, will you have a senior president who also like does software or something like that as an activity?
Yeah, so anyone on the team can work, like for instance, on the robot, anyone can work on the robot, so you're not limited by the team. And if you happen to be senior president and you do have some coding experience, you can work with the code team when it comes to that. So we don't limit. These are really where your expert area is. So I'm trying to think of a good example.
I think an important thing to note there, though, is that even the senior president, though they're running all aspects of the team, if they're working on coding, they still default to the lead and then to the director of that department.
Right.
So they can't just go into the programming electrical and decide, I'm the president, I'm overruling, we're going to do it this way. They're not the subject matter expert. Even if they were the director of that department the previous year, they're no longer in charge of it. You know, they can make suggestions and help guide, but it's really up to the director there.
Right, and our team knows that. They know how to work with each other, but they do respect who has a certain role. And that's actually a good example about, you know, programming, just because even in that department, whoever is the lead programmer actually has control of the code, because the director might be a really strong electrical person and they might not necessarily be the expert in code. So that's part of it too. Yes?
Just so I have the scope, how big is your team, how big is the school?
So the school is about 1,000 kids. Last year our team was one of the smaller ones we've had. We took 33 kids to competition. The largest we've had is 47. And it ebbs and flows. We're normally about like 35. So that's one thing, you know, when we share our documentation, you can take it right from our website. Just keep that in mind. We tend to have more than like 20 or 30 kids on the team, so we do have the ability to fill a lot of these positions. Yes?
Say you have only 4 mentors, I was just wondering, parts ordering, fundraising, budgeting, are the kids doing that too, or are they not?
So partially. So we have the business manager. They're in charge of our fundraising activities. Our fundraising does go through and gets deposited into our 501c3, which is run by a group of adults with a little bit of overlap with the mentors, myself included. And we do the financial transactions in terms of budgeting out what our parts are going to be for the season, or budgeting how we're traveling, etc. So we don't allow the kids to make financial decisions.
And part of that is because we are a school-based team, the orders, I have to actually place the orders in the ordering system, but when we're working on prototypes and building, we do have forms, like students will put in, we need these forms, we have these broken tools, so throughout the year they'll put that in and I can go in and order those. And typically, so for instance, Michelle Leach, who is Brad's wife, is actually in charge of administration, so the kids in that department report directly to her with questions. Brad has kind of done twofold, design and technical and programming and electrical, because we're currently running without a mentor for programming and electrical. And I'll oversee pretty much the general team and help with media and public relations right now. So, but yeah, the kids, we do empower them to put in orders and stuff like that. You know, we don't say you can go and put in an order for a $5,000 Mark Forge printer or anything, and you know, that discussion does come up. This year the big one was, can we get a green coach bus? And can we find a grant for that? So, these we're going to show just quick descriptions of how the departments are set up. If you do have questions, like I said, we're trying to go through this a little bit quick. I'm going to oh good, we're doing perfect. So senior and junior president. Senior president trains the junior president. Like you said, senior president is in charge of the impact and awards committee, and there's a section of the team. The junior president by default sits as one of the co-chairs of the outreach committee. Oh, women in STEM committee, that's the other committee. Sorry, just popped into my head. So the business manager is in charge of our sponsor brochure, they take care of that. We actually just had a meeting with our business manager. She's going to start reaching out to potential sponsors in August. Our logistics lead is in charge of organizing parts and really looking at what's low in certain bins, and like putting it in the order forms, just for certain fasteners, and for packing for competition. And the safety captains, you're pretty standard safety captain. Although 2 years ago our safety captain was probably the least safe person on the team.
That's not the first time that's happened, and it's actually made them much safer as a result.
Yes, it has.
They're experts in being unsafe, so they know what's not to do. Design and technical, of course we have our director, and then we have our manufacturing engineer who's responsible partially for design for manufacturability and training up on our lathe, mill, and CNC router. I'm going to get these backwards. Project engineer 1 is in charge of locomotion, so it's manipulator and subsystems. So their intake shooter, project engineer 2 is locomotion, so that would be drivetrain, climbing, etc. And systems engineer is typically our kind of CAD expert who makes sure that our CAD policies and procedures are being followed and that everything's integrating across all the subsystems together effectively.
And in these groups, so if you're working on game piece manipulation, there'll be a group of other students, can be from multiple different departments that have joined that during build season. And our systems engineer actually was really important this year because before we left for Worlds, we were machining new plates for stuff that had broken at DCMP. And our director of design and technical changed the spacing between some of our rollers because a really, really smart kid and just did it and is like, well, we think it's going to look better. And what would have happened is our notes would have been stuck in the feed rollers and the shooter at the same exact time at completely different speeds. And our system engineer brought it to us and like, something's different here. We realized before we ran those plates that there was that one little change, and they did their job and they reviewed everything and brought it to the mentors right away before we approved the new polycarbonate plates to be machined. So media and public relations, obviously we have the director, brand manager, which we talked about before. Our social media manager, we train them to kind of like correct policies, what you can post, what you shouldn't post. Even in some of the documentation for that is, kids always forget about copyright rules when they're using music. That's a big one, and image rules. And that also ties into a little bit of like what our school policies, in our school there are certain students that have waivers signed for in-school things that they can't have their pictures taken, which is a little gray area because they have to sign the waiver when they go to a competition that their pictures can be used, and we have to explain that to the parents. So a videographer, it's pretty self-explanatory. They're working on, especially now our new videographer, kind of redoing our YouTube channel and working on that, and the webmaster obviously is trained to work on the website. And this sometimes can be one of our biggest departments, and we have a lot of kids that like to do this, but we still, and this year our real goal is everyone has to work on the robot at some point. Like that's really pushing it because we'll have some kids that do get caught up in, the designs. Like the brand manager also helps with the t-shirt designs and everything from year to year. And how many buttons did we make this year through this department?
Too many.
I think it was like 8,000 buttons they were tracked. No, they're a little crazy. Their goal for this year is 10,000.
And last but not least, our programming electrical. Pretty straightforward. Our electrical lead is in charge of all of our wiring, ensuring that our connections don't come loose, and our lead programmers has final say on all of our code-related decisions.
And that's typically been one of our smallest departments. We ran into a little hiccup. Hayden, our lead programmer, he was lead programmer director this year. We have gone on the path of, it's like the Sith, where there's a master and a learner, and we had that ever since our first year, where it's been one after the other, and we had one student left, so we had that break, so Hayden did not have he was a Sith Lord without a trainer. And that's been like the ongoing joke with the team. It's like knowledge gets passed from one to one in that department. And there's usually like 8 kids in that department that are interested, but getting the kids into like robot code is a lot different. Do you guys have any questions on positions or even on some of the committees and everything? Yes?
So I'm hearing you talk about the size of each of these groups. Do the other team size cap or just where you naturally settle? How's that?
So by the rules of the team, we always said 60. We had to submit that to administration for the school years ago, so we kind of looked at, you know, what we could fit on the bus and what would be 2 buses with mentors, and that was that scope. The biggest we've ever been, I think, is 47.
Yeah, if we ever started consistently pushing past 50, and we were seriously considering cutting students, we would start evaluating what our next steps would be to accommodate more. But unfortunately, we haven't passed that point yet.
Yeah, and we talked about would we start an FTC team for like freshmen at that point, you know, for those kind of roles and everything. In each department, there's no set size for a department. Once the student's on the team, they choose what department they're in, and they can switch from department to department. Like our current senior president was as a freshman electrical lead. I should know that since that's one of my daughters.
Yep, electrical, then media and PR.
No, Grace was media. She went right to junior president.
You're right, just kidding.
Too many daughters that all look the same. But that's also a case of,
There's too many of them.
that's a case of, she was also, a captain on one of the FLL teams who had already been exposed to wiring, so could jump into that and apply for that the freshman year. Any other questions before? Yes?
Yeah, so it seems like you have a pretty clear, succession plan for each of your departments.
Yes.
Does that ever cause like resentment of other students who kind of feel that the league is already spoken for the next year?
No, I would say that there's enough turnover with the graduation throughput, and there's typically enough people who aren't interested in any kind of leadership position. They kind of shy away from that level of responsibility, that I'd probably say more than 80% of people who apply for a position get a position, maybe not their first choice, but and oftentimes we'll end up kind of creating adjunct roles on the side for a student that's really passionate and needs a task to be guided. That position may die off the next year. It may not be critical, but to keep someone engaged and give them ownership over a task where they want to lead in something, we'll create adjunct.
Yeah, 1 year as an example, we look at it as if you have a student that's really passionate, really talented, you don't want to ever have them just be, it sounds bad, like a general department member. If we have kids that love doing that, they don't want any responsibility. So 1 year, we had a student who was director of build because they were really good at organization, so they prepped all year for that. And that was a 1 year position. It was a position that just went away the following year just because we knew that wasn't going to be a continuous position. But that student wanted to be in the lab every single day, helping to organize, so would write down what needs to be done the following day. And this is the days before, like, we're using Trello and Slack and everything, so, yes?
What is the thought process behind having
The senior president itself is not a two-year term. 2 year meaning, like, you have to be the junior president to become the senior president. This year, we're just in a unique situation where a lot of people don't want to apply for senior president, so it happened to be only 2 people applied for the junior president that year, and it just happened to be the current senior president it's the first time the senior president has had a 2 year term. So it's typically 1 year and then the next. On our team, you guys probably run into this, it's like our base driver. You can't get kids that want to be a base driver sometime. We don't run into we don't have 15 kids that want to try out to be the base driver. Our kids are afraid to drive. We've even, we'll do drive practice and everything, so they're like, oh, it's really stressful. So it's the same thing. Some kids don't want to be senior president because they don't want to be involved with, running all the awards, setting up the awards, contacting parents, being the liaison for administration. And that actually really works for our team because kids choose their path with what they want to do. Yes?
What is the second time commitment?
So, the basic way we do it, I'll give you we encourage kids to go as much as they can. So during the school season, which is in September, we start with school season, they have to be at 2 meetings a month. The board of directors kids will be at an extra meeting because we have board of directors meetings twice a month. For committee positions, they're allowed to, they'll run some of the committee meetings on their own. So it's a really low commitment because we have like a lot of kids involved in band, chorus, sports and everything. So we don't want to be the team that says, well, you're just doing robotics. And then during build season, they have to be at one full weekend session and one full weekday session. And they can use that time to run their committee schedules and those kind of things. So we do it pretty flexible to allow it. And the board of directors, they have one additional meeting, like because of board of directors meetings. Most of the kids, we get to the point where we have to throw them out of the lab. And you run that range, or you get the kids that wants just to be on the team and does the bare minimum, and try to find stuff for them to do to the kids that are there every single day. And it's like, yes, that would be Dimitri's. Yes.
What's your meeting schedule on like a normal week?
So in a normal week, most of our meetings are Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I'll run like an after-school meeting, and then we run a night meeting. So a night meeting will typically be like 6:30 to 9. The after-school meeting will be for kids that come after school. And occasionally during the fall, we'll do workshops. So there might be like a Saturday workshop, like Brad might run an on-shape workshop. So kids can just show up to that. In the summer, we actually decided the last couple of years we are meeting all summer, so kids have to come to 2 a month. So I'm there every Tuesday and Thursday, same thing, one at 12 to 2 one day, and then 5 to 7:30 the other day. It's kind of funny when I started mentoring, when they bugged me to start the team, like I asked my wife, and I'm like, she's like, hey, you used to go, you're not coaching anything, because I stopped coaching baseball when my second daughter was born. And I just remember her saying, she's like, it's robotics, how much time can it be? And now she actually enjoys it, because with all the daughters doing stuff, she's like, it's great. You guys are all gone for a Saturday. I get the whole house for myself, unless it's a competition in the kids. So yeah, we do really, we don't want to stress the kids out. We get them involved, and we found that if we back off on the requirements, they actually show up more. Because it's not, I gotta go to a robotics meeting. It's like, ooh, let's go. Those kind of things. Other questions? Yes?
Stepping back on the requirements.
Meaning, like, we don't do, these have kind of always been our requirements. We don't require kids to be there every day. So like during build season, you're not required, like if we have 5 meetings that week, you're not required to be at every meeting. You can kind of choose what group of meetings you have to go to. And a lot of, like having Slack and everything has really helped out, because kids will get involved at home. Like we'll even tell kids, if you're sick, don't come into the lab. We had that one year.
Typhoid cam.
Yes. Brad's brother came in ill-advised with the flu, and the entire team got sick, to the point where there was one kid who could come in, and our robot that year is actually named after an ancient god of death and disease. So and the team chose that. That was, and yeah, so we give them flexibility, yes.
I find it helpful to use like every Monday, a mentor will be there, every Tuesday. So that it's just a even students, so they might have some other obligation, singing for a certain period, to just to provide stability and stuff. Do people find that helpful?
That hasn't really fit our mentor schedules. I work a lot of long hours at strange times, so I'm always available on Slack, like remotely, so I'm not always necessarily in the building because of the hours I work. And the same goes for my wife. She manages a brewery, so she works nights and evenings, and has like Monday, Thursday off, so she always makes herself available on Thursdays to commit. Soon, if it's not in school though, she'll have Slack or Zoom meeting set up where the kids can pop in. So we somewhat do that, but we don't always necessarily are always being in the school to offer that kind of in-person.
Yeah, one of our goals this year is we're trying to expand our mentor base, just because it does, like, it's a lot for me because I'm the main mentor in school. So we also do some stuff during the school day. We have a personalization period at the end of Wednesdays and Fridays where one can be used for meetings and one they can use for their committee meetings. But yeah, we haven't really ever gotten to the point where like our design and technical mentor is going to be there on that day. Now that does happen during build season. There's certain days where we do that, but that just hasn't worked out with our setup just yet. All right, so application procedure. So what we do is as soon as the FRC season ends, there's applications for students, and it's slightly different for the position. So for instance, the junior president, when they apply, and the director positions, they have to write an essay. And it's not like a traditional school essay, it's an essay that we ask them specific questions. Like for instance, the director, what are your plans to improve the department, okay? And even for like the junior president, it's like, you know, this situation comes up at an event, you're asked to do this task for the school, how do you manage your time, those kind of things. You know, and then for like a lead position, it's just like a short list of qualifications, and then we will set up kind of the, you know, the interview schedule. I think that's the next slide, right? Oh, no, that's description example. So we'll post a schedule, and for the, I think it might be up in 2 slides, but for instance, it has to be, we usually have 3 mentors there for an interview. And the interviews for a director or junior president or senior president are longer. You know, it's usually myself. If it was somebody in design and technical, like Brad will actually be there, we'll have one of the other lead mentors there. And the interview process, kids are nervous sometimes, you know, we will let them restart the interviews. And we provide them with a lot of feedback. And one of the things that our graduated alumni have always said, when they go to college interviews or everything, they're so much better prepared because they know certain things to do in interviews, some things to not do in interviews. We've had a couple of kids have a complete meltdown, and we're like, all right, take an hour, just come back, do the interview over, doesn't matter. Because at that point, we know their skill sets. You know, and usually the decisions are pretty easy. And you'll see a wide range. Some kids put a lot of time and effort into their essay and preparing for the interview. We've had some that show up with a binder with their own 5-year plan for where the team should go. You know. And just, you know, this is in our handbook. This is a quick description. There's more that goes with this, just so all the kids know with what they're doing. So senior president is chair of the impact committee. That's actually updated will be updated in the new handbook because it's impact/awards now. Responsibility of team liaison with parents and school district faculty and staff. So every position on the team has a description as well as a department description. And that's actually all in our handbook.
Take it back.
No, I think that's,
Oh, we're just a little out of order. So I think we've covered everything on that.
oh yeah, like junior president, you need a teacher recommendation too, which is pretty easy to get in our school and everything. And that's, a lot of the stuff that we do is also prepping kids for, you know, having a resume ready, like prepping for college applications, like you need to ask teachers for recommendations, not the day before Common App is due. Yes?
I don't know if you have any like other leaders involved with the team that's asking teachers not involved with the team at all.
So there's only one other teacher involved with the team, and they're actually taking a little bit of a step back this year. So it's anyone, we tell them we won't write recommendations as members of the team. We just want a different subset of what you're doing otherwhere. And it can even be a coach too. We tell them that too. A lot of coaches are teachers. Yes?
How do you handle giving feedback to students?
So we'll actually sit down with them after the interview and just say, hey, this worked, what worked really well, you know, but you'll have the kid that, I'm trying to think of something that came up this year.
I think oftentimes when they submit an essay for a director position, and you read through it, and you can tell the student who came and brought several ideas to the table and spoke through them clearly and effectively. You can see the student who is just doing well, I'm going to repeat the question and I'm going to state the same thing 3 times, 3 different ways, and you can see that. And when they come in for an interview to discuss their ideas and why they're a good fit for this role, they stumble and fall. Which is also why we make them write the essay, so they have to have written down their ideas. And we'll provide that feedback, and we'll ask them questions of, well, this and this are just the same item twice. That didn't provide me a third item. You tried to get by with 1, 2, and 1. That's no good.
And we'll even see the things like eye contact. So, we already went over that. We kind of went out of order. If you want to go to the last. All right, so on our website, or you can just message me in Slack, these are basically, we have a lot of documentation, we've kind of worked on a lot of it. So there's an outreach plan, business plan, our brand book. The book of Gongolewski is where all of our really silly things are. Even like, for instance, one of the things, bearing blocks, one time I put in Slack beefing blocks because I didn't have my glasses on, so the kids now call the bearing blocks beefing blocks. So it explains why, those kind of things. Our skill badge, mentor structure, and those kind of things. So feel free to email, like, want to go to the email page? Well, that's the website, team information, but since we don't want, like, feel free to reach out. We will share all of our documentation. Just keep in mind, like, when we hit August, we usually do our edit, rewrite, and approval with the board of directors. So there's some things, like, it still says Trello in our official handbook, but we're switching either to Slack lists or ClickUp for next year, so. Or feel free to just grab one of us for anything else after. I didn't think I would talk that much.
I think we need a student leader.
Can't see. Yeah, I can. I can do so. Yeah, you say it.